I know I haven't posted in a while, but I've been trying not to post on the day-to-day events or news because, everybody's doing that. And I'm not interested in commenting on every single, news item that comes out. But here's one thing. I want to tell you about a conversation I had here on YouTube with some person. I don't know them, but just swapped a few comments. But I think it's an indication of what a lot of people think, and it's an indication of a deep flaw in a lot of people's thinking. So here goes. Again, this is some person comments on a video about publicly funded healthcare or something like that, and they say, well, but how can we allow people to go without healthcare, or some such? I don't think we can allow people to go without healthcare. People who need it, who can't pay for it, we can't allow. So I go ahead and ask them, what do you mean we can't? Who are you speaking for? And where does this come from? And then the person corrects himself, and I think it's a he. And he says, no, I'm talking about myself. I can't allow people to go without. And then I respond by saying, well, yes, you can. And you have, and you are, and you will. Think about it. Every time... Now, you know that there are millions of people out there, presumably, without health insurance. That doesn't mean that they don't have access to care. In fact, they do have access to care. But that's another story. Let's talk about, lack of health insurance. So there are people out there, presumably millions, and I will actually concede that there are millions of people there without health insurance. Now, every time you buy yourself like an ice cream or a cup of coffee at Starbucks, or do something nice like go to the movies or eat out, or buy a new piece of clothing that you don't absolutely need to survive. Every time you do that, and the mere fact that you're, renting the kind of place that you're renting and not a smaller, cheaper place, or that you're driving the car that you're driving and not an older, cheaper car, and I know that for the vast majority of people, it is possible to rent a smaller, cheaper place and drive a smaller, cheaper car, because they don't rent the cheapest place by design and don't buy the cheapest car by design. Now, every time you do that, or the fact that you have all those things, is an indication that you are letting somebody go without health insurance, right? So you're consuming something for yourself, doing something for yourself, something that you don't need to survive. It's not essential to your survival, instead of taking that money and spending it on somebody's health insurance or health care, So yes, you are letting people go without. You have, you will, and you will continue to. And this person comes back and says, so because we can't help everybody, we shouldn't help anybody? And I said, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, we shouldn't do anything. You should do whatever you think is right. If you have a viewpoint, and you want to convince other people of that viewpoint, you can try and do that too. You can talk about it to people, try to convince them, help them convert to your position. I will do what I think is right. You will do what you think is right. I will do it with my money. You will do it with yours. How about that? And he says, yeah, that's a fair point. But see, I want to extrapolate from that, or rather, generalize from that. See, whenever you start talking about normativity, meaning people must do or should do or ought to do X, Y, Z, we should always think those things through and take them to the logical conclusion. For example, if it's immoral to let somebody die because they don't have access to health care, or let somebody suffer because they don't have health insurance, right? It's immoral. Let's think about, and a lot of people will hold that position. A lot of people, especially on the left, will have that position. It's improper, it's bad, it's immoral to let anybody suffer because of lack of funds, for example. If you can help them, you should help them. That's a moral commandment. Now, the left will take that one step further. They will actually want to make their moral preferences into laws for everyone. And some people on the right will do that too, to be fair. But let's think about what that means. You know, there are people out there, again, there's a whole continent with about 1 billion people who live in abject poverty. I'm talking about Africa, right? There are people in America that are probably going hungry today. There are millions of people without health insurance coverage. And yet, we go out every day and we eat out, we buy nice meals and ice creams and movie tickets and, nice cars and whatnot. So all of those things are then immoral. Well, where is the limit? Where does it stop? In fact, why should we only... Again, and with that person, in that little dialogue I had, I actually said, well, if somebody's suffering somewhere right at this moment, right? And you are consuming way beyond subsistence, way beyond the mere need for survival. So every time you go over that need for survival threshold, you're actually committing an immoral act by your own standard because, hey, somebody's suffering, if not right around you, then somewhere on the globe. Hey, you could have taken that money and given it to some child in Africa, and that would, those $10 that you spend on a movie ticket, that would last that person like a month or maybe 3 months. But you haven't done that, so you've committed an immoral act. Sin by omission, if you will. Because you have to, you have to go there if you're going to claim that another person has a claim on your property by mere virtue of the fact that they're suffering. See, suffering creates a claim on other people's property. Because somebody's poorer than you, that automatically creates a claim on their behalf on your stuff. Because that is what it means. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing else. That's exactly what it means. If we must help others means that other people who are poorer than you, who have some kind of suffering or discomfort or difficulty in their life, that fact automatically creates a claim on your stuff. And you're no longer the owner of your stuff. By by virtue of the fact that somebody else is suffering, they now own your stuff. Okay? And people who claim that we must help others, unless they're living in abject poverty, unless there's nobody else there's nobody around them poorer than they are committing a sin of omission by their own standard. Of course, they don't see it that way. Because, of course, the reason for that is because people claim those moral high grounds and those moral positions because they want to feel good about themselves. They want to feel like they're good people, not because they want to help somebody. And again, see, or rather, they want to help somebody. They want to feel like a moral person, And feeling like a moral person is an end in itself. And, nothing makes you feel more self-righteous than criticizing others for their sins or for their vices, right? We feel most self-righteous when we're pointing our finger at somebody else saying, oh, look at that bastard. Look at how selfish he is or she is. That feeling of moral superiority is the end in itself for those people. It's not helping others, because in order to help somebody, you actually have to figure out what helping them would consist of. And that would lead you to have to define the human condition somehow for yourself and define what is good and what is not good for people, right? That requires a lot of thinking. But feeling doesn't require a lot of work. Emoting is very easy. Any idiot can emote, but that's what they want to do. They want to emote. They want to feel a certain way. So, to recap, people set up impossible moral thresholds, impossible moral standards that they absolutely cannot abide by. Yet they continue to resist thinking about these things, and they continue to, be completely incapable of seeing the contradiction. Okay? Just a little food for thought.